you asked about the possibility of changes in the property tax system.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that. I forget the people's vote to change that, and you said that that's been delayed.
Well, there are two separate things. So
Okay.
there's the initiative by citizens, which I think is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's a group of citizens working to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to eliminate property taxes altogether in Ohio. That's a group out of Cleveland. They initially were hoping to get onto the ballot this November. They have since decided to go for the ballot next May. And so I know that they're still gathering signatures. I've signed one of those petitions myself. So that's a citizen-led initiative. The one that's more direct and immediate is that there's an action in the legislature to override Governor DeWine's property tax reform vetoes. And if they do that, one of the overrides will be to give county budget commissions, and so there you're talking about me, the auditor, the treasurer, and the prosecutor, that's the budget commission, will have the opportunity to look at all of the individual tax rates that are charged by all of the taxing jurisdictions. So you've got the county, you've got the schools, the library, the health district, the townships, the city has property taxes. I mean, anybody who charges a property tax, assuming that the legislature follows through with this, the county budget commission will then have the opportunity to look at all of those levies one by one to determine actual need in terms of what all of these entities really need going into next year in terms of what is generated by the levies, what their spending needs are, what their carryover, how that carryover factors into their plans for next year. And so I hope that they'll do it because as of right now, there's really not a means for the Budget Commission to address that. And so what we have in Ohio right now, under the current system, is very limited opportunity to adjust property tax rates from one year to the next. And we've been through it in Ross County. I think you did some reporting on it earlier this year, at least Soda Post did, is that unless something changes, Ross County is going to go through a pretty significant property tax hike similar to what we did in 2023 as a result of the 2022 triennial update. And those are state mandated. But basically in Ohio, what we have is a system where as a home's value goes up, so does its tax bill. Because in Ohio, for some reason, they've decided to leave in place a system that taxes unrealized gains on property owners. And I think it's reached a point where people have said enough is enough. And so what you have is you have this citizens group that wants to get rid of property taxes entirely. And admittedly, that would be a pretty drastic step. And I think the legislature has tried to find an alternative means to address the problem of unvoted tax hikes on unrealized gains. And things were going great and moving in the right direction until the governor did what he did with it. And
so that would, what the legislature is trying to do maybe to circumvent the initiative?
Well, so I think you'd have to talk to a legislator about that. And there may be some who are motivated by a plan or a desire, I guess, to circumvent the initiative. But I think a lot of legislators, the ones I've talked to, are really just genuinely interested in providing property tax relief because it's a real problem in Ohio. I think about my neighbors on 5th Street. I kind of use them as my example when I talk to people about this. I live downtown. I'm not wealthy. My neighbors aren't wealthy. We live in middle-class homes in a middle-class area. But you're looking at my neighbors specifically across the street. Retirees, mid-60s, don't have kids in the house, fixed incomes. In 2023, on their $180,000 house or whatever it is, they took a $600 increase on their annual property tax bill. And it's not because they got a tax hike because of a decision that was made locally. What they got was an increased tax bill as a result of a home value that rose. And so that's what we're set to go through again in Ross County, because that was 3 years ago. It's a 3-year cycle for how the state requires those updates. And that's something I've been talking a lot about, is that what we saw in 23 is going to take place again next year unless something changes.
Yeah, I think we had talked about early this year, late last year, that like business properties
Yes.
will get a de facto tax hike because of the reassessment.
Yeah, so this is something you and I talked about, I think it's been like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
You're talking about up at the vocational school, right?
Yes.
Yes. So that's a separate thing, but it's a similar kind of principle, is that because of the fact that values on commercial properties are going to be going up to current market values, as they should, because that's what's taking place for homeowners.
But they haven't for a while.
Yeah, commercial hasn't been updated since 2007 on a comprehensive basis. But again, there it's the same idea, is that, because of Ohio's system, as the value goes up, so does the tax bill. Even if you haven't sold it, even if you haven't made some kind of a change to your property. And I think what's going on in the legislature is an attempt to de-link the idea of rising home values with commensurate rising tax bills. And the way they're doing that, as of right now, is that if they override the governor's vetoes, they're going to give county budget commissions the opportunity to look specifically at those rates and adjust them as needed. So fingers crossed.
Which may be more fair, since that's more local control.
Yeah, that's what I love about it, is that what you have there in that scenario are local elected officials. Again, that's me, auditor, treasurer, and prosecutor. We are local elected officials. We know the housing market. We talk to the people who pay these taxes every day. We are right here. We're accountable to the people. And so what I like about it is that you have the opportunity for local officials to have greater opportunity to affect a local outcome. We shouldn't have a system where property taxes are kind of on autopilot, and every 3 years they just go up because values go up.
Yeah.
I think that if your taxes are going to go up, it should be because either the voters decided it should go up, and if that's what they decided, that's the will of the people, or because local elected officials who are accountable to the people every 2 or 4 years in elections made a decision that the people can weigh in on. But what's missing in Ohio on property taxes right now is any kind of accountability, because if what you have are automatic tax bill increases every 3 years with nobody, whether it's the voters or the elected officials, actually making the decision to do it,
there's no accountability.
Where's the accountability? Exactly right. And so if your tax bill goes up and you go to your local elected officials and they say, well, sorry, nothing we can do, I don't think that's acceptable. And thankfully, the legislature appears to agree, and they've done something about it. I wish Governor DeWine hadn't done what he did, but he did. And, I'm not going to jump up and down about that, but I do hope that the legislature is going to make that right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that the commissioners are children's services. The funding is another issue they're worried about.
Yes. So this is something, again, you and I talked about this, I think, has it been 2 years on that?
Could be, I lose track.
I think so, yeah. 2 years ago, yes, it was 2 years. South Central Job and Family Services came to the commissioners, and they have a funding problem. Right now in Ross County, we have a levy that generates about $1 million a year, specifically for foster care. It's the Children's Services levy. But the actual cost of foster care in Ross County is, at this point, more like $4.5 million. And so we've got this budget gap that in recent years past, the commissioners have had the opportunity to use federal money, ARPA money, to kind of fill that gap. Well, the ARPA money's gone, or at least it's been dedicated.
ARPA money meaning COVID?
Yeah, COVID money, American Rescue Plan Act. And so all of that money has either been spent or has been dedicated to a specific project. And I think I mentioned the sewer line project is an example of that.
So all that windfall is now...
It's spoken for, one way or another. It's either spent or spoken for, and we can't make the change because of how the grant works. And so we're at a point now where the commissioners are having to use local tax revenue, whether it's sales tax or property tax, to fill that hole. And so this 2026, next year, will be the first year the commissioners have gone into it with a full understanding of what that need is. And so when you're looking at, we just traded some emails on it this morning. It's a $3.5 million figure that was given. The commissioners are having to commit. Commissioner Everson bumped it up to 4, and so as of right now, their plan is to appropriate $4 million from the general fund for foster care, and that's a first for Ross County. And so, again, there, as with the discussion we had about the capital improvement plan, what I'm saying is, if you're making a change like that to the spending status quo, you've got to find an offset somewhere else. Otherwise, it's new spending, and you're growing the budget. So it's going to be up to them to figure out, and they know I'm here to help. But these are things that require attention and specific planning and action at this point.
So they've got a lot of work to do, and they've got an extension to the end of the month.
That's right. What they applied for, and we submitted it to the State Department of Taxation, was an extension to the end of the month while they continue to work through these things. And so at that point, it'll be closer to the end of the month. The commissioners have a final tax budget that will be adopted. And even then, I say final, and it's true in terms of the tax budget. It's really not the final 2026 budget. I think, as you know, you adopt a tax budget as kind of a preliminary plan that is provided to the Budget Commission, that the Budget Commission uses to assess needs. And then it's at the end of the year that the final 2026 budget is actually adopted.
Okay. What is the usual county budget?
Last few years, it's been around 35 to 36 million. The requests that have been turned in so far, we're looking at about 41.5 million, I think, in requests. And so what will happen is that, I don't know what the commissioners are going to do with it in terms of the tax budget, but at the end of the year, ultimately what's going to happen is that the commissioners and I will get together. We will look at the requests from all the departments. We will look at the projected revenues. And in years past, the practice has been to line expenses up with revenues so that we can say we're passing a truly balanced budget. And the idea has been to leave that carryover intact. I've got my own thoughts on the carryover. I've shared those. We've discussed them. But the idea in terms of budgeting has been not to budget beyond what we're expected to receive. So they're going to have to figure out how they want to approach that. But that's been the objective in years past. All
right. How can people learn more about your office?
Give me a call, 740-702-3080, or send me an email, just Jeff Lehner at rosscountyohio.gov. I answer all my own emails. It's funny, sometimes people are like, wow, you wrote back, and say, well, what do you want me to do? But yeah, the emails come directly to me. They don't go to a staff member. You will hear back from me if you send me an email. You will talk to me if you give me a call, and we try to be responsive.
All right. Yep. Jeff Lehner, Ross County Auditor, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. See ya.